Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Elevated Minis. And in this episode, we're going to be painting up some ghosts from one of my family's favorite tabletop games, Zombicide. So this is No Rest for the Wicked. It's an expansion for Zombicide Black Plague or Green Horde. It's been up in my closet for a while now, and I decided to give the Spectral Walkers a shot. Now, if you don't happen to have that model, it's okay, because you can apply any of these techniques to any ghost model you happen to have. It's for anything where you want that spectral or ectoplasmic look for. But if you guys are new here, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and leave a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. I'm kind of experimenting with my setup a little bit here. Just trying some new things and learning a little bit. So any feedback you happen to have on that would be awesome. But having said that, let's get started. To kick things off, you're going to want to use a white or light gray primer. I'm using gray surface primer from Vallejo through my airbrush, but you could just as easily use a rattle can for this. After letting the primer dry, I thinned down some Ionrach Skin with a bit of water to base coat all of the cloth areas. I intentionally left the skin alone for this because I wanted it to look just a little bit different from the clothes. A lot of the ghost tutorials I've seen tend to go for one consistent look for the entire model, which is definitely faster, especially if you're going with a dry brush method, but I wanted to try to give the different parts of the model a little more interest. To start the ectoplasmic effect on the clothes, I thinned down some Nihilakh Oxide. They really could have picked an easier word to say, and I'm still not 100% sure if I say it right. But I thinned it down with approximately 3 parts of Lahmian Medium. The Lahmian Medium is important for this step because the color would be too intense otherwise, and by using the medium it keeps the pigment of the Nihilakh Oxide suspended, which helps prevent the pigment from separating and leaving it consistent. If you were to just use water, it would become pretty patchy on the surface, and that's not what we want. And again, I tried not to get any of this on the skin, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. We can clean it up later. And similar to the Nihilakh Oxide, I thinned down some Nighthaunt Gloom. That's much easier to say, which is another technical paint from Citadel. I thinned it down at about a 4:1 ratio of Lahmian Medium to Nighthaunt Gloom because this stuff is pretty strong otherwise. I covered all of the skin areas, but also parts of the cloth that touch the skin, just to kind of create a subtle blend between the two. The hair was a little bit of an experiment for me, and it probably didn't come out exactly how I wanted, but for a horde type unit in the game, it still came out fine. But to start it off, I laid down a base coat of Thunderhawk Blue, which is essentially the same color as Nighthaunt Gloom, but using this color is easier to get a solid base coat down. So with the Thunderhawk Blue dry, I used some Nuln Oil to slightly darken the hair and also bring out some of the recessed details. I wanted to keep moving while waiting for the Nuln Oil to dry on the hair, so I went to work on the skin. Being careful to leave the Nighthaunt Gloom in the recesses, I layered Glacier Blue over all the raised areas of skin and musculature. It's kind of odd that the ghost has abs, but we're going to bring out those details anyway. I realize I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place on this model, but it's just me letting things dry and allowing myself to keep moving. But I wanted to bring back in some more of the yellowy Ionrach Skin to the cloth by laying it up and leaving the Nihilakh Oxide in the recesses. further highlighting the cloth, I use Deepkin Flesh in smaller sections than the previous layer, mainly focusing on the most raised areas and ends of the cloth, and it'll really help sell the spooky effect we're going for. For my final highlight on the cloth and the skin, I use dead white, but use any white you have. You don't want to go too crazy with this because it can really wash out the model, so only go as far as you think it really needs. I wanted to bring back some of the original color on the hair with Thunderhawk Blue, and I was trying to preserve the individual strands that were popping out, but for whatever reason, be it the coffee or too much paint, I wasn't entirely successful here. But looking back at it, I probably should have wet blended the colors, then used the wash, followed by some careful highlights, but it's okay. It all turned out fine in the end. My thought process for this was I wanted the hair to get lighter towards the ends, so I put some Ulthuan Grey on the wet palette and did a 50-50 mix of that and the Thunderhawk Blue before ending up with a final highlight of straight Ulthuan Grey. I tried to be a bit more selective with the individual strands of hair at the ends as well as around the face. To try and tie in all the colors of the hair, I thinned down some Incubi Darkness with some Lahmian Medium into a wash-like consistency, which you can see on the palette. This kind of changed the tone of the hair just a little bit while dialing back those highlights and bringing out the recesses a little bit more. And for the final step on the model itself, I used dead white with a fine tip brush to dot the eyes. So, working on the base now, I started by painting the rim with heavy charcoal because I felt like it would create some separation from the board, as well as make it feel like these guys are floating over the surface when I go to adding the foggy effect later. I then followed that with Ulthuan Grey on the base, and it doesn't have to be perfect coverage here because 99% of this is going to be covered by the end. After the paint had plenty of time to dry, I laid down a thick, heavy layer of Aleene's tacky glue all over the bottom of the base and spread it around with a brush that I didn't particularly care about. I then took a cotton ball and stretched it out a little bit and then wrapped it completely around the model. I pressed it down only where it touched the glue so I would be able to stretch and manipulate the cotton a bit more once it dried, and I set it aside for over a day, and it's really important that you let this dry completely. I wanted the cotton to be really wispy, so I carefully pulled away the cotton from the base with some hobby tweezers and my fingers. You just want to do this until you're happy with however thick or thin you want it. And this foggy effect may not be for everyone, and I'm not 100% sure what the longevity or durability of this will be, but I thought it would be a fun thing to try. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And that about covers it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it and picked up a new technique or two, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you never miss out when I release some new content. Until next time, guys, thanks again.